Alright, what's going on, guys? Happy Sunday to all. What I want to show you in today's video is the bull score and the bear score on the weekly charts versus the daily charts. Right now we have a bit of a divergence, so to say, between the report cards on the weekly and the daily. So real quick, a big thank you to everyone who signed up for next Saturday's class and purchased the brand new Big 3 squeeze. One of my favorite parts of the new indicator is the bull score and the bear score. So we'll talk more about that in class. But this takes my structure criteria, momentum criteria, stacked DMAs, moving averages, takes everything that I care about, and spits back a report card for the bulls and the bears based on all that criteria. The best possible score for the bulls is 5, and the best possible score for the bears is also 5. So I'll take you through a few weekly charts here. And there's two themes. One theme is that for most weekly charts, the bulls are still in control. They're winning on the scoreboard. But at the same time, for a lot of these weekly charts, things haven't pulled back to test support at the weekly 21. So we haven't seen that weekly reversion to the mean. In some cases in 3, 4, 5 plus months. So for the Qs here, the bulls are up 3-0. So momentum, structure, everything still leans in the favor of the bulls. For the S&Ps, the bulls are up 3-0. They're up 3-0 in the Dow. The bulls have 4 points and the bears have 0 on the small caps. So the small caps have a very solid weekly chart. Google, bulls are up 3-0. Apple, the bulls are still up 2-1. Amazon, the bulls are up 3 points. Microsoft, the bulls are up 3 points. QQQ, the bulls have control. Bulls have control of Tesla. 4 points versus the bears, 0 points. Bulls have control on Netflix and AMD, the semiconductors, and Nvidia. So for all these weekly charts, Nvidia, the semis, AMD, Netflix, Tesla, the Qs, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Google, the S&Ps, the small caps, and the Dow. For each of them, the bulls still have they still have control of the wheel on the weekly chart. But like I mentioned, take the S&Ps for example. Back in May and June, you fired that weekly squeeze. So blue dot and a green arrow. The Big 3 bull squeeze, and that one worked as advertised. You had a squeeze, you had a buy signal, off she goes to the upside. That all sets the stage for a potential uptrend. That's what the buy signal tells us. At this point, everything's aligned for a potential uptrend. By definition, we're not going to learn whether or not we're going to be in an uptrend until things actually pull back. All an uptrend is a series of higher highs and higher lows. So if you're looking at a 15-minute chart or an hourly chart, the normal ebbs and flows would be you get a squeeze fires long, at some point price reverts back to the 21 EMA, and then if the structure holds and you find support, then things typically turn the corner, take out the highs, and keep trading higher. So right now, that's a common theme with a lot of weekly charts. Structure is still bullish, momentum is still bullish. Most of them still print a weekly buy signal, which tells us for now we want to buy that dip. If we do get a pullback to the weekly 21, and you're still cranking out that buy signal, it's a buying opportunity. So we're seeing that on the weekly charts. And now on the daily charts, the bears are taking control. So that combination of a little bit of an overbought weekly, and then a daily chart where momentum shifts negative, structure begins to break, and the bears kind of have the edge, what that combination can lead to, if the bulls can't quickly change it, is that pullback to your weekly 21. For the S&Ps, that's a pullback to about 430. So on the daily chart, the bulls have 1 point, and the bears have 2. So that gives them the slight edge. For the IWM, The bears are up 3-1 on the daily chart. Now Google here, Google's still really solid. So if anything, I'm not trying to short Google, where the bulls are up 4 points to none. Apple, on the other hand, bulls have 0 points and the bears have 3. So I think there's a potential that Apple here could be giving us a heads up of what's to come from the S&Ps, the Qs, and the rest of the market. Apple had a weekly squeeze that fired all the way back in March. Squeeze fired to the upside. And then somewhere up here, what happened? All right, before that pullback to 180, before that reversion to the weekly 21, the daily chart kind of starts to throw in the towel. Momentum broke negative back in June, or July rather. Structure starts to break, and now here you are. That's what I think could happen if things don't change for the rest of the market. The weekly charts are still solid, but they're overdue for a pullback. If under the surface, inside that weekly chart, the bears take control on the daily, from there you can get that pullback. Amazon, alright, Amazon's still solid, so Google and Amazon, they're kind of the studs. They're the studs in big tech right now. For the rest of them, though, not so much. Microsoft has 3 points to the bears, 0 for the bulls. For the first time since May, June, July, the bulls have nothing to stand on for the NQ, or the QQQ daily chart. Bulls are down 0 to 3. So now that daily squeeze fires short. Momentum's been under the 0 line. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a recipe for a pullback to 350. And then again, for proper context here, there's no problems on the weekly chart, other than the fact that we're a little overdue here for a pullback to support. So that means I can take that daily squeeze in the Qs firing short, try to short the bounce, look for a move lower. For now, I can't look for much more to the downside than 350. I'll short this thing, but I don't want to fight that weekly buy signal. If we get down to support and we're still printing that buy signal, I do not want to fight that fight. So the bulls are down 0 to 3. You're seeing the same thing here on Tesla. Bulls have 0 points and the bears have 2. For what it's worth, Tesla's weekly 21 is about $12 lower at 230. But you can take the scoreboard here on the daily chart. You can look to short a bounce for a flush down to that weekly 21. But I don't know about looking for much more than that. Let's see, Netflix. Bulls have 0 points, the bears have 3. Now for those of you that bought the indicator, AMD should immediately stick out. Reason being is that label over here, Big 3 squeeze A+ setup, it's lit up nice and bright red. So that tells us we have the ideal short. We have the modified squeeze. We are printing a sell signal inside of that squeeze. And for now, AMD is still trading within the entry zone. So we can't trade these squeezes with these signals if our entry doesn't allow for a good risk versus reward. With our indicator here, that's the only way something can print an A+ setup. The modified squeeze, the buy or the sell signal, and it currently offers an entry that then allows us to work a good risk versus reward. So with AMD's down here at 105, even if we still have a sell signal and even if we still have a squeeze, at that point price is too far from the entry zone. And at that point that label would not be green, would not be red. Would go back to dark gray. So AMD looking a little rough here. And then the semiconductors, they also fired a daily squeeze short, with a bull score of 0 and a bear score of 2. And there's another good example of that momentum divergence. Momentum made a high back in June. After momentum peaked, the price went on to make 1, 2, we'll call it 3 more highs. There's your divergence. Momentum tapped out, momentum on the decline, price continues to climb. If they can't correct the problem down there with momentum and yank that back above the zero line, eventually that divergence catches up to the price. And typically it's in an ugly fashion like you're seeing here. Not a very gracious pullback. So you take that daily squeeze firing short. That could take the semis another $4 or $5 lower. As long as you have a weekly buy signal, I think you want to be a little careful about trying to get short much below that weekly 21. If anything, at least initially. And then lastly here, NVIDIA, same thing. Big 3 momentum peaked back in June. So there's your momentum high. Price goes on to make 1, 2 more highs. Momentum going lower, price going higher. They never corrected the problem in momentum. Now that's catching up to the price. So from here, guys, if the bulls can't fight back quickly, you take that daily squeeze that just fired short. You look for a bounce. If that bounce doesn't fix all the problems, if that bounce can't take NVIDIA, for example, back above that daily 50, I would look to short that bounce for that flush down to the weekly 21. Which for NVIDIA takes you to about 370. So personally and in the mastery, until proven wrong and until the signals change, that's a game plan that we're going to work here moving forward. Try to short bounces in the daily squeezes that just fired short, looking for a continued flush lower, down into what should be support at the weekly 21 EMAs. And like I mentioned, for those of you doing the Saturday class next week, I believe the 19th. Yeah, the 19th. We'll talk more about the bull score and the bear score, the targets and A+ setup. We'll definitely pop this thing open and do a good walkthrough. But alright, y'all. That is what I'm seeing here heading into the new week. And remember, it's not based on my opinion. I'm not the one doing the thinking here. It's the indicators doing the thinking for me. And what they're communicating pretty clearly is that we have bullish weekly charts that are a little bit cooked. And now with our daily charts actually shifting momentum, shifting structure in the favor of the bears, I don't think it's the end of the bull move. It might just be time for things to pull back to weekly support, and then we take it from there. So y'all have a good weekend. If you haven't already, do me a big favor. Hit the like and the subscribe button. And I'll make sure we put a link for this Wednesday's webinar and next Saturday's class somewhere here in the description of the video. Y'all have a good Sunday, and I'll talk to you soon. Adios.